Imagine a country runs out of money, it cannot pay its debts, it cannot afford to import essential goods like fuel or food. The value of its currency collapses. This is a sovereign debt crisis. When this happens, there's an organization that nations can turn to as a final, desperate option. It is called the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. It was created after the Second World War to prevent catastrophic economic collapses. Think of it as the world's emergency financial service, a lender of last resort. The IMF does not simply hand over cash without strings attached. When a country requests a bailout, the IMF provides a loan, but this loan comes with strict, non-negotiable conditions. These conditions are known as structural adjustment programs, austerity measures, deep cuts to public spending, increases in taxes, sale of state-owned assets. The IMF's goal is to force the country to live within its means. To receive the rescue money, a government must prove it is fixing the problems that caused the crisis. This is not just a theoretical discussion, it has happened before. To understand the gravity of an IMF bailout, we must look back to the autumn of 1976. Britain was known as the sick man of Europe. High inflation, soaring unemployment, persistent industrial strikes. The value of the pound was plummeting on international markets. The Labour government, led by Prime Minister James Callaghan, could no longer borrow the money needed to keep the country running. The nation was, for all intents and purposes, bankrupt. Chancellor Dennis Healey was forced to fly to Washington. He formally requested a loan of $3.9 billion. It was the largest loan the IMF had ever granted at that time. The request sent shockwaves across the country and the world. Newspaper headlines screamed the crisis, a stark admission. The UK could no longer pay its own way. National pride was deeply wounded. A sense of crisis gripped the public. The IMF's conditions were severe. The government implemented huge public spending cuts. This turmoil paved the way for the 1979 general election, Margaret Thatcher's victory. So, what would an IMF bailout mean for you and your family today on August 27, 2025? The impact would be immediate, direct, and painful. First, your taxes would almost certainly go up, and sharply. The IMF would demand that the government raise more revenue to close its budget deficit. This would not be a small tweak to income tax bans. Income tax, national insurance, VAT, the basic cost of living would become more expensive overnight. Your weekly shop, a new pair of shoes. Next, prepare for a severe reduction in public services. The IMF's core demand is always to cut state spending. Institutions we rely on would face unprecedented budget cuts. Your local NHS hospital could see ward closures, longer waiting lists for operations. Your children's school might have larger class sizes, fewer resources for schools. Funding for local councils would be decimated. Libraries, road maintenance, bin collections, community policing would be stretched. Social care for the elderly would be under pressure. The long-term consequences of an IMF bailout would extend far beyond the immediate economic pain. It would inflict a deep and lasting scar on the nation's psyche. A generation would grow up in an environment of managed decline. Public services are perpetually underfunded. Opportunities are scarce. This can fuel social division, political extremism. People lose faith in mainstream politics and established institutions. The sense of shared community and mutual support that holds a country together would be dangerously weakened, replaced by resentment and despair. Furthermore, Britain's influence on the world stage would be shattered. A nation that cannot manage its own finances cannot credibly project power or influence abroad. We would be relegated to a lower tier of international importance, our voice diminished in the G7 and the UN Security Council. The government must pursue a credible and sustainable economic policy. This means making honest choices about spending and taxation, investing in infrastructure, and investing in skills to boost long-term growth and managing the national debt responsibly. Political leaders must be candid with the public about the challenges we face. As citizens, we must demand competence and honesty from our elected officials. We must engage in the national debate about our economic future, understanding that there are no easy answers or magic solutions. A healthy economy is built on a foundation of political stability, social cohesion, and a shared commitment to a sustainable future.